Hello, I'm James. I'm an artist and designer, and I'm the creator of the 3Z universe, www.3zuni.com. What you're going to hear now are all the flash briefings from the month of May 2018, and the flash briefings were made for the Amazon Echo, the Amazon Alexa. So sit back and enjoy. Please share and comment, and sign up for the Alexa if you've got an Alexa.
Briefing 001. Saturday, spring afternoon. Ishma, she wants to be free. Her life takes a toll, her job takes a toll, repetitive work cycles. She's sitting on her concrete pod roof and a glass of red import cheap wine. It is 2:30 p.m. This is a time to watch a great sight. The spherical floating city has been anchored over the port near to where she lives for the last 5 days. An access shuttle moves up to the city, taking dwellers from the city back to where they live. The city blasts lights from many of its stabilization pods. The pods are on the end of long truss structures. Small lights flicker from the massive windows. The city is about 200 meters wide in circumference. Ishmael listens to 20th century Italo space disco. The sphere city could be an escape from this landlocked dry city. Surely she could try to escape to it somehow, get past the security gates. Meanwhile, a couple in their 20s take a classic Italian, futuristic 1970s sports car outside the city. They're going to go on a road trip. A sign says "This way to the future." They think it could be just a sign for a fun fair or something like that. They take that sign, they turn left, go round the loop, and then they end up on the highway. The highway, or the freeway, as they call it in the USA, is heading west. The smell of the creosote in the spring air is strong. The car races into the distance. The sky is a blancmange pink as the sun sets.
Briefing 002. It is 9 p.m. on a random spring day in New York. Liana lives in the centropolis of New York. She is 25. She lives with her parents and earns money on the Broadway strip, selling high-tech jewelry that interacts with people's emotions. It interacts with people's conversations. It proves quite popular with the tourists, especially the ones from Korea and Japan. She last saw her boyfriend leaving to the west in the Lotus sports car with another woman. How sad. It must pass. Her daily brain-tomized quote says, "All this will pass." This brain-tomized quote beamed directly into her brain through Wi-Fi is usually correct. She doesn't know where this phrase comes from, probably some Buddhism thing, but it's not the origin that matters, it's the message. She likes to watch old movies about the end of the world. "There are no phones ringing, goddammit," shouts Charlton Heston into a deserted Los Angeles. It is 9 p.m. and the New York buildings flicker a light dance. The wind is warm on her skin. Meanwhile, the sphere city drifts and its pods stabilize the turbulence. Sometimes when the city is near the ground cities, you can almost see people inside the tiny windows high above in the sky.
Briefing 003. It is 8 a.m. on a random spring day. The Lotus sports car is really out there now, 400 miles from where they set off in New York, heading west. The flat fields still have some arable crops. Farmers plow these lands, getting less of a yield each year. The car is converted to battery. They hope it'll last. The gas stations only service tumbleweed now. If they run out of gas here, they're kind of in trouble. There's hardly anyone that lives out here anymore. A great engineering sculpture next to the road can be seen. They pull up near it and stop. They don't have to pull in. There are so little cars around. They just stop in the middle of the road to see anything they want to see. It's a geodesic radome. One of those ones you see radar stations, those round spheres that usually white. They always glint in the sun. These radomes are a kind of backup to the satellite internet. When EMPs, space phenomena, hacking, warfare in the past took out the satellites, then these radomes were reactivated after their uses in Cold War in the 20th century to be used as backups for internet Wi-Fi. And out here, often the satellites don't bother to beam anything around here, so the radomes are relied on for the farm settlements that are scattered around the area. This one is showing its age. The freezing North American winters have worn the metal down, rust and scratched paint. Many would think this is ugly, but the road trip couple think that it's sculptural. It's beautiful, like some cool mid-20th century sculpture book that they used to read in the art college. In the sky above, the cross of the sphere city blinks its blue eyes, the blue ion pods that are used to stabilize it. There are other lights out there in the night skies. Sometimes you can see them. They are easier to see away from the pollution of the cities. The corn crops next to the highway sway in the wind. There is that rain smell. You know, that smell just before there's going to be a rainstorm? To the east there's a towering thundercloud, cumulonimbus, out there, way out there.
Briefing 004. It is 1 a.m. on a random spring day. The musician lives in the central Berliner Stadt Euro district. He sees music as sculpture, and he notes what he sees down as a musical score. The Classical Academy taught him nothing. They were fossilized idiots. He bases his music not on academia, but life, a life experienced. 1 a.m. is his best working time. He drinks black coffee, a luxury commodity in times of stagnating global transport. Rain hits on the window of his 31st floor apartment. The lights in the sky outside perform dances while the city tower lights blink in the distance. You can see the old tower and the Alexanderplatz. But what were the lights in the sky? They were not from the floating cities. They're not meant to be in this area according to the global map projected onto his living room wall. So what are the lights?
Briefing 005.
3 children stand together in a large grassland plain. They're wearing strange hats, like orange swim hats with earphones on them. They're staring at something out on the horizon, out there in the sunset. Their stare is almost without humanity. The green and yellow sun-bleached grass stretches out to the surrounding small dome-shaped hillocks. The grass sways and it looks like a life form. There is a static aurora storm high up there in the sky. These storms apparently started during the First Wars. Something to do with the bombs from the war, they said. The aurora makes beautiful patterns and colours. This comes and goes every few months. Beautiful. On the horizon, the spherical city floats westward, half the size of the full moon. Black smoke trails with the orange sunset behind. Briefing 006. The Skytel. Always a place for you to sleep in the clouds. Choose from 5 Skytels around the old world cities. NYC Central, Reykjavik, London Central Metropole, Berlin Old Zone, and Beijing. You can dock using the scheduled 3Z city pod times, and other flying structures and vehicles can be arranged as well. You can also access the hotels from the ground cities via air balloon taxis. Each room is a separate floating lozenge pod about 10 meters by 4 meters. Each is equipped with a king-sized bed, shower and spa. Each contains a large window with auto tint glass. Interior controls means that you can rotate each lozenge 360 degrees to suit the light conditions or to look out at the stars. Wake up to rising sun over red strands of clouds. See the stars clear as diamonds above the ground's smog. See the static auroras when they arrive. This is a luxury worth buying. If you can't afford it, just put it on your creds. Holidaymakers, business, commerce. Dream above the clouds. Be a dreamer and dream bigger as dreamers make the world. Contact us now to get on the waiting list and reserve a room. Briefing 007. The Lotus sports car sprints on the flat, cracking road. Just cornfields on each side, a few telephone pylons, cables snapped long ago and trailing along the ground. Birds using the tops of the pylons as lookout posts to catch insects. The Lotus sports car passes a rusty 20-meter edifice, probably made from Corten steel. You know, that reddy-orange kind of stuff. It looks like it's some kind of sculpture. The orange-red rust colour of it all looks cooler, offset by the yellow corn below it. This place was hours away from any form of civilization. The corn was probably kept okay by robo-harvesters. They are still working these days, even if their owners were long dead. Who on earth wanted to make this strange sculpture? Some strange folk out here. They needed to get away from these parts, get to a city, or even a town again. The road trip was ever so slightly losing its novelty now. Briefing 008, the flower seller. She lives in the Euro city that has the river dissecting through it. It's starting to get humid now as spring turns to summer. She sells artificial neo-robot flowers. They unfurl in the daytime and at night they curl up like real plants. Beautiful colours, some garish and artificial, some subtle and almost like real flowers. Like so many of her generation who grew up during the wars, her eyes have a vacant sense and a slight milky appearance suggests mild cataracts. Even in poverty and hardship, she creates the robo-pixel flowers with great skill. Always something to make. Briefing 009, signs in the sunset. The landscape becomes less flat as they drive further into the west. The cornfields turn into more rolling hills with green trees. Street furniture passes by as they drive through the wide open roads, largely abandoned by the lack of traffic. Small plants and shrubs burst through the concrete. Advertising symbols try to sell them something. Some of the symbols are animated. Their form and words can take on new meanings. There is something beautiful during a long road trip about neon signs, and the soul still has a pain. The pain we search for new experiences become life, and this is the eternal wheel, as eternal for our lives anyway, perhaps afterwards as well. Briefing 010, symbols in the stone. On a beach in the northwest islands of Scotland, the United Kingdom, an ecological family find a piece of slate on the large white stretch of sand. The slate has strange markings. It must be from those lightships that sometimes appear on the horizon, sometimes floating on water, sometimes floating in the sky. The symbols look abstract, but at the same time they look kind of ordered, a bit like hieroglyphics, some kind of language. They take it back to their small but modern underground house and park the slate on the mantelpiece. Water still draining off the slate. Salt drips onto the fire, hissing. The symbols rest for now.
Briefing 011.
Akrast 5, a small town in the grasslands, away from the cities on the North Atlantic east coast of the USA, way inland, one of those places city people never go and never think about. It's a small town, a few dwelling cubes, shops, a single-track road tarmacked, built long ago, slicing through the centre. A few government-issue wind turbines stand in the middle of the town, a few homemade ones circulate around the edges, as well as a scatter of solar panels. The low afternoon spring sunlight makes shadows of the town stretch to the east, pointing back to those cities on the Atlantic like the New York metropole. Akrast 5, the population is 550. A small, close-knit community, eyes ever watching, scolding eyes, look out from the cabins. Akrast 5 is located in a small valley surrounded by vast expanses of rolling hills covered only in tall grass. There is usually some wind around and it always looks as if the hills are shimmering green. Janol and Tren are both aged 16. They walk up out of the village and into the tall grass. They walk up to the top of the hill next to the town, and they carry optic handheld digital telescopes. They're going to wait for it to get dark. Janel says, "So Tren, do you reckon the 3Z city will pass over here tonight?" Tren says, "Yeah, it sure is from what I could find on the internet. I could only connect for 5 minutes today. It was very slow." Janel says, "Yeah, Dad says it's the takedown. They don't want people to live outside the cities no more, so they're restricting our access. He reckons he can hack around it for now." Tren says, "I wonder what it's like to live in the 3Z city. You know, no one down here really knows." He takes a mint vape inhale, making steam clouds that catch the golden rays of the sun. Janel says, "Yeah, some of my friends from Akrat 4 reckon that there's no one in it. You know, like the government says, you can move there if you work real hard, but it's like some say there's nothing in that floating city or something that we're not supposed to know about." Trent says, "Well, I don't know. I reckon something isn't it all right, but it's like those other lights you can see out there sometimes in the sky. It has to be something." The sun now is low and the sky is like blood. Their digi-telescopes are set up on tripods and point to where the 3Z floating city is meant to be first seen on the horizon out to the southwest. And it should pass right over them and their little village of Akrast 5. The wind gets up. It's cold and it rattles the tall grass. 3 neon blue lights suddenly appear on the horizon. Trent has been correct. The floating 3Z city will soon pass over their heads, over the little town.
Briefing 012.
The Lotus sports car still moves west. Night becomes day, day becomes night. The greenery goes back to a dusty desert landscape with a few scrub weeds here and there. The road that they're travelling on is dead straight, and the tarmac is scorched as if a giant explosion had happened overhead a few years ago. There are also cracks in the road and small blades of grass push through. On the horizon, they can see 5 walking cylinder dogbots padding across the fields. These are grain storage-sized horizontal cylinders with 4 pneumatic legs. They are about 15 meters high and 30 meters long. They shift in a kind of formation pack, a kind of clockwork giant formation pack, almost hunting, almost alive. Their function was and still is sometimes used to provide goods, water, food, and other supplies to outlying towns. Not all the towns these days are supplied by roads. It would cost too much to maintain, and most of these towns are now self-sufficient and don't pay taxes to the Eastern Seaboard Metropole. As the Lotus car speeds up and moves further west, it leaves the dogbots behind, walking somewhere over the fields to another little town somewhere out there that we'll never know about.
Briefing 013.
Citizens, welcome to Smile City. Population 1.2 million. We pride ourselves on our vast networks of shopping malls, underground and also above ground. Pay us a visit. Come stay at one of our luxury hotel pods. 24-hour shopping access. You will experience not online shopping, but how they used to do it in the 20th and early 21st century. Browse in the diamond stores. Drink organic matcha or a latte in one of our coffee shops. Relax with a beer or wine after a long day of shopping at an internet cafe. Book now, non-Smile City citizens, and we look forward to your visit. We guarantee you will leave smiling. Remember, be happy.
Briefing 014.
3Z City over the city. It is a calm night after drifting on an airstream. The 3Z floating city stops now over mid-plain central city. The city is called Mid-Centropolis. It sprang up at the end of the 21st century. The 3Z pod detaches from the main sphere of the floating city. The pod then drifts aside and then downwards to the city on the ground. Mid-Centropolis, 700 meters below, made from a generic cluster of high skyscrapers in the center, then buildings getting lower and lower as it spreads out to the suburbs. From the air, from where the 3Z floating city is, a blue haze of light spread across the landscape, shimmering in the distance. Long lines of streets slicing right through the central area. 2 cities, the floating city and a ground city. From the floating city we can see a network or a spider web of the city below. Humans like ants. The sky beyond. In the sky to the northwest we can see electrical pulses flashing. That's the aurora. There's a strange static feeling in the air tonight.
Briefing 015.
This is an Eastern Seaboard Network municipal announcement. Beware the mystics. Beware the mystics. They wear white boiler suit type clothing with rounder hoods, round orange circle badges on their arms donate their sect. They also wear white masks, black holes for eyes and mouths. This renegade religious sect always moves in threes. It's part of their belief set. You often find them in the cities trying to converse with citizens. If you see these mystics operating, or if they attempt to speak to you, please call your local police district robot response team as soon as you can. These mystics threaten our equilibrium and are a danger to you and your families. They need to be destroyed. Thanks for your attention.
Briefing 016.
High towers in the city of Mid-Centropolis. Large blue neon sign vertically attached to one tower. Says, Dream Smarter. 2 porthole windows, neon graphics. Same blue color flash. One a symbol of a human, another one of an ape or early man. The words and images probably mean something subliminal, or a way to direct or re-educate the citizens of the city. It is morning, the sun rises in the east, and the floating city is still moored over the central Centropolis. It's just about to leave and catch the airstreams high above, emitting smoke building up its ion pod energies to blast to a new destination.
Briefing 017.
Mutated plants. Out on the plains in the tall green grass away from all traces of civilization, there are clusters of mutating plants, perhaps a side product of the small nuclear bio-wars decades ago. These wars weren't as predicted to end all wars, and people as well survived, but they did affect the world. These mutation fields are no-go areas. The plants grow to 10 or sometimes 20 times their normal sizes and have also shifted their forms. They almost look macabre. A few select teams of scientists and researchers have studied them, and they've just announced that these plants are starting to emit poisons into the air. One team of scientists entered a plant cluster and never returned. For now, all scientific research on these plants have been halted. Like all life that survives and thrives, they have adapted and are always adapting to new conditions, the same way as how humans thrive, adapt, and evolve.
Briefing 018.
See no, hear no, speak no. Jarod is on a business trip. He's from LA. He's in Old Tokyo. He's on a business convention there. Old Tokyo is still an alienated city for a West Coast US guy. He stares out the window and looks over the city. He looks almost Japanese. That's probably his Native American roots from way out in Arizona. He remembered an old film in the early 21st century about Tokyo, but he couldn't remember it. It was about alienation. I think it was set in Tokyo. He remembered it well. It reminded him of what he felt now. He had been put up by his corporation in a pod hotel. The night sky of the city was full of lights and full of neopixels traveling around the air, advertising slogans, dream bigger, dream big, smiley faces, grumpy faces, all trying to sell something. He phones his wife. There's no answer. Where is she? It's afternoon over there. They'd had an argument. Perhaps it's that robot she talks about at the gym. She talks about this robot all the time. He's paranoid. There is truth in paranoia, though. He can't handle it anymore. He clutches his hands to his head, blocking out everything, and screams. Tears flow like a child. Neopixels float around Space Invaders. The next day, he would not go to the convention. He would cash in his account, get a flight back somewhere like Arizona, get camping equipment, and just start walking into the abandoned wastelands. There'd be no distractions. There'd be no covering of his face or his eyes. He would get back to something out there, something in his DNA, the call of the wild, as it were. Neopixels still tell you to dream big outside the window.
Briefing 019.
They speed in the sports Lotus car. This time the terrain turns to rock, a rocky terrain. As he drives, his shaved, sculptured head is almost too perfect. The sun catches it like a moon from behind. She's next to him, her tan skin and a blonde fringe almost like a wig. They don't speak, they rarely speak. They're both athletic. There's almost a tension between them, but not really either. It's difficult to explain. The car moves down the freeway. The freeway goes into a rocky valley, a low-lying rocky valley. On top of one of the rock hills, a giant government inflatable advert says "No play." It's kind of a joke, but not really. It's sort of a cartoon man. It's a sphere on top of a sphere with a smiley face and two silly legs and two silly arms. It's tethered by a rope, and on the stomach of the silly inflatable it says "No play." Well, no play, what does that mean? You must work. These road trippers are playing a game. They're trying to find a secret to the next level. The car doesn't stop, it drives on and leaves the no play inflatable behind.
Briefing 020.
Matrishka, she lives in near Leipzig. She devours reading the classics, the classic German literature, such as Goethe, Nietzsche, Hermann Hesse, etc. She earns her living by making virtual, interactive, low-polygon, virtual reality worlds based on these stories. Her client base loves them. They love the low-poly aspect mixed with the deep Germanic philosophies. On her t-shirt it says Weltschmerz. She made this at the local fabrication lab on the vinyl cutter. Weltschmerz is a German word. It means world weariness. According to Wikipedia, it means that life rarely matches idealism found in the arts. She's world weary, she's 25, or is it just some phase from her gothic punk stage she's going through? Whatever it is, she makes amazing environments and her clients love them.
Briefing 021.
What was once a city called Montreal in old Canada. There was a World Expo here way back in 1967. A beautifully naive time when people celebrated global connections. An old park, dried up trees, dead trees, next to the scorched Saint Laurent or St. Lawrence River, now just a stream with cracked mud banks. It used to be a majestic, wide river, almost like a sea. An old geodesic dome, designed by the legendary Buckminster Fuller. Still, its lattice wireframe golf ball structures are still intact. We move closer and closer. There is tiny movement all over it, speckles quickly rushing around. As we get nearer, we see nano ants, a real pest. They are devouring this northern extent of this eastern seaboard city. They extract their nutrients they find in the steel, aluminium, and mortar of the human cities. No one really knows who released these self-replicating bots into the wild. Some say it could have been terrorism, but it happened about 20 years ago near what was once Toronto, just before one of the small nuclear wars. Since then they have been spreading, making these northern extent cities largely uninhabitable. The eastern seaboard government tries to control their extents through digital virus releases into their colonies, and also small explosion detonations. One of the nano ants perches on the top of the dome's girders. Perhaps it is the leader. It flicks its head robotically to the south, as if it is now focusing its attentions on what was once New York.
Briefing 022.
Michelle. She smokes like an old film actress. She's wearing cheap gold hoop earrings, dyed blonde hair. She's in her late 50s. She wears cheap blue plastic shades and smokes. The smoke sculpts a noir cliché in her living room. She lives in Paris on the 5th floor of an East Zone block. Diagonal evening light pours through the half-open blinds. The smoke is orange, the sunset smoke. Outside, the spring blossom trees rustle. And behind that, in the dusky red sky to the west, the old Eiffel Tower. Next to it, the Neo Tower, a big column, twice the height of the Eiffel Tower, oppressive in its presence, with the light blinking on and off at the top. A crescent moon is behind that. The moon is set in the purple sunset sky. She lives alone now. Her past lovers all gone. She usually got rid of them first. She likes to keep digital honeybees. Their artificial intelligence is high, but she prefers them in projection mode. Flat cartoon bees moving around her dining room wall and her dining room ceiling. Each is about 2 centimeters in length. Sometimes bees from the real world glide in to investigate these strange cousins of theirs. One comes in right now through the window. Time almost slows as its wings capture the gold sunset rays and the smoke from the cigarette.
Briefing 023.
An Eastern Seaboard government announcement. There are many dimensions. Our city, our life, but sometimes from the corners of our eyes, many of us see the spirits that dance. When we are driving home on the freeways, for example, when we are taking in the sun in one of our many parks. Remember, do not worry about these spirits that dance. They are not real as far as you are concerned. We know the science behind them and we are dealing with them. Do not worry. For those of you who use amulets and other voodoo superstition items, they will not help you. Remain calm, calm down.
Briefing 024.
Witches. In the southwest of Scotland, before the small nuclear exchanges, there was a naval nuclear base here called Fast Lane, just to the west of what was once Glasgow. In the First War, a small nuclear airburst flashed over this base, destroying most of it and damaging the local towns. Luckily, things did not escalate, and what was once Glasgow recovered and grew into Neo-Glasgow. However, in the Fast Lane area, people didn't return. The wilds were allowed to grow. Shrubs, alien rhododendrons, trees grew from the ashes. Only some inhabitants went back. They reclaimed the blasted lands and set up organic farmsteads and brought hydrolab kits to make hydroponics with. These now scatter the hills that lead down to the lochs here. On a nearby hill, an old radio mast, shattered, warped and sculptural, bending southwards away from the shockwave. After the blasts, many of the children born around here were born with strange mutations. Some of them you couldn't see the mutations. Rani, she can see the past and the future. The spring is turning to summer now, and she is a seer. During this time, she spends the evenings on the hill with the warped mast. Spends her time watching the lights go by, the floating city, and the other floating structures that pass in the evening and night. She can see an island called the Isle of Arran to the west, and glimpses of the coast beyond. She stands between blasted charcoal trees, watching the red sun setting to the west. During the night, she sits under the twisted mast, and she performs a ritual. She transports her shadow self to the eastern seaboard city in the USA, what was once New York. She walks among the neon lights and the skyscrapers. Citizens there sometimes think they see a shadow moving in the corner of their eyes, in the back alleys, or in the corners of the old grim subways. The world is connected with digital and also ghostly webs.
Briefing 025.
Zoya's game. Zoya lives in Neo-London. Both her parents were from Vladivostok. She has distinct features: pale, freckled skin, straight, light brown hair, high cheekbones and slanted Slavic eyes. She lives in one of the 100-floor high tower dwelling complexes that stretch east out into the Thames estuary. She is developing a geometric reality game. It consists of geometrical problems that get increasingly more difficult and complex as the levels go up. Players control the geometry with their minds to connect all the shapes together in the quickest time possible. The shapes formed in the VR space are often like works of art. She plans to release the game in 2 months. This will be her second game. Her first was a financial success. This allowed her to take time to make something that she feels really passionate about. Sometimes at the higher levels, something strange happens. She thinks it could be a bug and keeps trying to check the block coding in the game again and again. At the higher levels, the geometry starts to flicker and it shifts diagonally, warping, almost as if making a larger hole and connecting to other shapes that she cannot see, possibly in a 4th or 5th dimension. It is difficult to explain. She just discovered an old book in one of the old museum libraries. The book's called Flatland, a romance of many dimensions by Edwin A. Abbott. She recognizes similarities in the book and in her game.
Briefing 026.
Farmsteads. The sports car continues out west and to the south on the road trip. It hasn't stopped. The man and the woman seem not to want rest, saying little to each other, with eyes glazed, fixed on the road ahead. The landscape is desert now. Reds, oranges, formations by the side of the road as the sun sinks to the evening. Rock formations, sculptural, twisted rock, blasted rock. Some small townsteads hug the rocky hillocks. A wind turbine here and there. Polytunnels, makeshift solar panels. During the wars, many uprooted and moved out to these areas, often carting their children and elderly parents with them. The land was cheap due to the lack of water. Solar power, battery lights start to automatically switch on in the dusk. They often purchased a hydroponica kit, trademark. The inventor, a farmsteader herself, devised this all in one kit for people who wanted to start their own self-sufficient farm. The kit consisted of all the gadgets, water collection devices, and also a collection of seed packs and some automation devices needed to become self-sufficient, especially out in a desert location such as this. Many say she made a lot of money, and some say she has an island out there, somewhere in some Pacific chain, abundant with food and a happy population, whatever that means. The sports car and the 2 passengers flash past these farmsteads, not eating, nor sleeping, almost non-human.
Briefing 027.
3 Tower Interchange. Have you been past the 3 Towers Interchange? In the night it is a great sight. Tonight, warm, early summer air. Car headlights flash by and turn into tracer streams. Caffeine driving. The cars rush by. The summer night you can smell the pollen and the ever-present threat of rain. The 3 blocks stand solitary just on the edge between the great flat plains to the east and the large ground city of Centropolis. The entire planet is linked with transport hubs, such as the airport, from the 3Z floating city to the dwelling shanties, and to the more middle-class worker and work towers that consist of the 3 tower interchanges. Everyone going somewhere, but no one going anywhere. The 3 block towers mark the exit and entry into this city. Out to the east, the plains stretch. The cool wind comes in from them, full of vegetation and pollen and moist air. It washes away the fumes of the interchange into the grounds.
Briefing 028.
North Pole Solitary Walker. It is 2 meters high. It's made of a collection of 10 centimeter diameter carbon fiber spheres, painted white, now fractured in the ice-cold wind. It walks like an alien creature from another planet over the ice sheets in the North Pole. Solitary, a solitary machine with no purpose. Its uranium battery and solar power collection cylinders mean that it will continue without purpose for decades, or even a century to come, on its journey alone. As we move closer to one of the central spheres, we can see it reads on its scratched surface, NASA Mars Test Robot 05 2034. Of course, its human master's long gone, now after one of the EMP attacks in 2035. It walks alone.
Briefing 029.
The 3Z City. The 3Z City floats on the jet stream somewhere over the middle vastness of southern Canada, plains, farmlands below, much of it being reclaimed now by grassland and trees, the odd farmstead here and there with solar lights flickering on and off. When you see the 3Z floating city, it appears to defy natural laws of flight. The stabilization iron pods make it drift almost like a seed in the wind rather than a normal flying vehicle, flying straight along a path with little wobble. No one knows exactly the date that the city was made, or where in the world it came from exactly. People on the ground are constantly aware of the advertising, bombarding them about a better life that can be led in the 3Z floating city. Occasionally the access pod will dock at certain cities with these facilities, such as Centropolis, Neo-New York, Neo-Reykjavik, Neo-London, Neo-Moscow, and other cities in the Northern Hemisphere. To this day it is an enigma, and everything else often feels like this, in this dreamlike, partially apocalyptic future.
Briefing 030.
They've stopped the road trip car, pulled up on red gravel next to the cracked, worn-out tarmac bit of a road. She stays in the car. They are in a vast desert plain, mountains far away where the road is going in a straight line. Cotton wool clouds linger over the far parts of these mountains, while, at the same time, massive jet trails stretch over the rest of the blue heavens. He holds something that they stopped for, the small cuboid electronic gadget that they saw from the car lying on the side of the road. It's about 5 centimeters by 5 centimeters by 5 centimeters. He holds it in his open left palm, and he stares at its light pattern. It has broken wires attached to it, scratched orange paint, and a light array pattern pulsing with blue light. Some kind of message, perhaps. Definitely not random. Zephyrs of hot winds come from the mountains. 1, 2, 3, the pattern says. She calls him to look at the mountains. Look to the mountains. In the sky there are lights at about 10 degrees elevation over the mountains in the far distant horizon. They have the same colour and the same pattern as the small cube. The lights in the sky are not those of the floating city. The news says it's further west now, and he has seen it before. These lights are different. After a few minutes, the lights in the sky go out, and they also go out in the small box. He grips it, and then he gets into the car. He starts the car, and they drive towards the mountains where the lights were. That's where they're going. The old radio in the car tunes into some old tune through the static. Some people out there still running their own radio stations in this vast wilderness. Thanks very much for tuning in and listening to the 3Z Flash Briefings compilation. If you want to go to the Amazon Alexa on the link, if you have an Amazon Alexa Echo, then you can subscribe to the daily briefings on that and listen to the future ones to come on that. If you don't have that, then you can wait for another compilation either on YouTube with the accompanying slideshow or SoundCloud just with the sound. So remember to check out 3zunu.com, and I've got my first product coming out very soon. It's going to be a physical product, and it's very exciting, and it's the first product from the 3Z universe, and there'll be more products to come as time goes by. So without further ado, I'm going to get on with some more painting of some 3D prints that I've been making for my latest 3zuni.com art, and have a great morning, afternoon, evening, night, or whatever time of the day or night it is, wherever in the world and beyond you are. Bye for now.
Sound effects for all these flash briefings were taken from freesound.org. Creators were Dobroid, Iha Hotagi, Framcom, Ambient 1, Loop Mode. Ambient Drone Level by KickHat, Jamal Borg, Urbis Los Cypresses de Lima, Peru, Rutger Müller in a Car Driving, Beach Waves by Old Pueblo, Strangy and Robin Hood, .y21, Carol27, Kangaroo Vindaloo, Nebulous Flynn, I Speak Waves, Habit, Japan, Wakiko Crossing Wav, Christiane Coulter, Wind Turbine by Maurice Cheeky, Monolith.wav by Nominal,